Okay, I think the recording has started, Terry, so I
Okay.
think we can go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here this afternoon. We have basically, we want to approve our last meeting's minutes, and then we want to have a discussion about our Volunteer Tennessee staff and just looking ahead to address anything that might happen and maybe just some thoughtful brainstorming on what we can do to be prepared for that. So those are the two things that we need to do today. All right. And Jim, I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm just clearing my throat. Sorry.
No worries. Jen, do we need to do a quorum check?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll do that really quickly. Okay, Destiny Brown is not on, and I don't think she's going to be able to be on. Nathan Farner.
Here.
Greg Lyles.
Here.
Betty White. Not able to join. Sorry, I skipped out of order. Terry Silver.
Here.
Eileen Wallum.
Here.
Yvonne Wood.
Here.
And Jessica Youngbloom.
Okay.
And she's not on, and I don't think she's going to be able to join. So you have 5 of the 7 voting members of the executive committee, which constitutes a quorum.
Okay. So our next business is to approve a statement of necessity. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Due to scheduling conflicts, less than a quorum of Volunteer Tennessee Commission members is present in person for the meeting today. So under Tennessee Code, annotated section 8-44-108, the Volunteer Tennessee Commission is allowed to rely on participation of members by electronic or other means to constitute a quorum, only upon determination by the commission that a necessity exists. The commission is scheduled to consider time-sensitive situations concerning our staff today. Do I hear a motion to approve the determination of necessity to proceed with the meeting with a quorum to include electronic and phone call participants based on time-sensitive matter of today's agenda, including approval of the minutes and brainstorming around certain scenarios that may occur with our staff?
I so move.
Thank you,
Second.
Eileen. Was that?
Or I
I
think
did-
Evan might.
Perfect.
I think somebody did.
Yvonne, was that you? Thank you. Okay. All right. So that is, that goes forward, right?
What? Well, do you want me to do a roll call vote?
Yes, I do, Jim. Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Destiny Brown. Nathan Farner.
Yes.
Greg Lyles.
Yes.
Terry Silver.
Yes.
Eileen Wallum. Eileen, you're muted. Yeah, okay. She's muted, but she's giving the thumbs up. Yes, she can't get herself off mute, I think. Yvonne Wood.
Yes.
And Jessica Youngbloom. And the motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Our next order of business is to approve the minutes from 3/21/25. If we'll take just a minute to look over those minutes, I believe they were emailed to us. Does anyone have any?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I can put them on the screen if anybody would like to put them on the screen. If that.
Does anybody have any corrections or additions, or do you need to see them on the screen at this time? Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Jim, would you please do a roll call vote?
Yes. Destiny Brown. Nathan Farner.
Yes.
Greg Lyles,
Yes.
Terry Silver,
Yes.
Eileen Wallem,
Yes.
Yvonne Wood,
Yes.
Jessica Youngbloom. And the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. All right, so our next discussion is to talk about worst case scenario with our Volunteer Tennessee staff, based on some of the changes that are occurring and that we've already seen with the AmeriCorps. So we kind of want to open the floor and talk about, how we can be prepared if something does happen. And I want to start with Jim, if you'll give us any updates that you're aware of that would affect this conversation.
Yeah, well, I think the main update is, as best we can tell through America's Service Commissions, which is keeping a close watch on all of this, as best they can tell, DOJ physically has left the AmeriCorps agency. They believe that the DOJ employees are still monitoring the AmeriCorps agency activities and communications, et cetera, but they're no longer actually physically at the agency, as best American Service Commissions can tell. So that's one thing that is potentially good that they've left, and that potentially that means that the cuts and terminations that they've done already are potentially the only ones that are going to happen, at least for right now.
Okay.
The other thing, again, according to Ask from the call that they had last week, is, and there were confirmation from other state service commissions that they are moving forward with awarding the next round of operational funding. So I think probably most of you all know that we have two main operational grants that provide funding for staff and supplies and travel, et cetera. One is our commission support grant, and that covers most of the staff and most of our kind of day-to-day overhead operational expenses. And then we have the commission investment fund, which includes salary for one staff and provides funding for all of our training and technical assistance, both for staff, commission members, and the programs that Volunteer Tennessee funds. So those are the two grants that, according to Ask, the AmeriCorps agency is moving forward. And actually, during that call, several state commissions confirmed that they were getting clarification requests from the AmeriCorps agency about those two budgets. Volunteer Tennessee did not receive any clarification request, but that doesn't mean anything bad. It just means that potentially they just didn't have any questions for our two grants. So that's another good sign that they're moving forward with those. And those two budgets start July 1st. So we're just a couple months away from those two budgets to start. So those are that's the good news. The other thing that is potentially good news is that Ask relayed that they believe that commissions can refund the programs that were terminated. Now, we do not have any confirmation from the AmeriCorps agency about that, but that is what Ask believes. So those programs that we had to say goodbye to last month and are kind of in the wings waiting for funding that would start August 1st. Ask believes that we and all other state commissions can refund those programs. Again, that's what they're hearing. But we don't have any kind of written communication or confirmation from the AmeriCorps agency about that.
Okay.
So those are the key updates. The only other update that I'll share is that we have not yet received the results of the national competitive funding process. and we send kind of our best programs to compete nationally against programs from across the country. If they get funded, that money comes directly out of the pockets, so to speak, of the AmeriCorps agency. And then we have our formula allocation that we then fund the other programs. So we haven't heard about the results of the competitive process, and we still don't have our formula allocation for the program year that would begin in August. But according to Ask, we should be getting those potentially this week. Both the competitive results and our formula allocation.
Okay. That's all good news. I was waiting for the bomb to drop. There's no bad news at this moment.
Yeah, not any additional bad news than
Okay.
what we've already gotten. Right.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any questions or concerns among this group based on what Jim has told us and what we've seen happen in the past couple of weeks?
Have you had any contact with those programs that were eliminated, or,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Greg, we have. I mean, we've been in communication with them to help them to exit their members and to close out their contracts and to do their final invoices. So we've had quite a bit of communication back and forth with them. They're also apparently some of the programs thought that Volunteer Tennessee had a say in which programs were terminated, which we did not. I mean, we got a notification from the AmeriCorps agency with a list of the programs that were terminated, and that was it. So to kind of settle that question, we sent the actual communication from the AmeriCorps agency with the attached spreadsheet that listed the programs. Just to say, look, this is it. We had no say in this. They told us which programs were terminated, and we are just implementing it. So that was a little bit disconcerting that programs thought that we had a say in it and that we weren't being open with them about it. But hopefully, by sharing that, we've kind of put that question aside.
Well, nobody would know unless it was communicated,
Sure. Yeah.
So full
Yeah.
transparency. I appreciate that you did that.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, we had a call the day, I think it was April the 28th. So that was the Monday after the Friday when we got the email that came at 6 p.m. at night. We had a call that Monday with the programs that were terminated. And I think that we told them that we had gotten a notification from the AmeriCorps program telling us which programs had been eliminated. But to be honest, I don't remember. I mean, I don't remember what we said, and I don't know if we recorded that meeting. So I thought that we had told them that it wasn't our decision, because it wasn't. But
Yeah.
anyway, we've shared it, and hopefully that will kind of quell any kind of doubt about whether or not we had any say in it.
Well, thinking forward in a scenario where you get a 6 o'clock email saying we're shutting down this, and this, Volunteer Tennessee staff, what would happen in that scenario? I mean, well, two questions. Number one, I know that we have to go through the process of getting our ducks in a row, but is there any funding available for our staff that would give them a certain amount of time, maybe to find something else or to have a little bit of cushion in case something did happen?
That's a great question. And the answer is kind of.
Okay.
And it depends. If we were to get that 6 o'clock email, it depends on when it comes, because we do, in addition to the federal funding for those two operational grants that I mentioned, we have matching state funds for the commission support grant.
Okay.
So those two together, there it's about half and half. So the feds provide about half and the state provides about half. So we do have those state funds. The problem, if we get that email between now and say, early to mid-June, we're almost at the end of the state fiscal year. So we've pretty much used up just about all of those state funds.
Okay.
But there might be a little bit left in there, but not a whole lot. If we got that notification after July 1st, the new state year starts afresh,
Okay.
and we get the new state appropriation.
Okay.
So we'd have about $460,000 in state appropriations that we could use 100% state money as opposed to 50-50 federal state.
Okay.
But obviously it's only half of what we would need to keep the staff running. So it would, and it also has to cover all the other expenses too, like the rent and the phones and all that kind of stuff. So we could probably manage a couple months just on state money, as long as the state was okay with us using that money 100% instead of splitting it 50-50. But it would really only be a couple months, like 3 to 4 months, which is time certainly, but it's not a ton of time. But again, that's if we were to get that kind of evening email after July 1st, we would have a cushion of a couple months. If we get it between now and say middle June, close to the end of June, there's not really any state cushion there. So we would potentially be in a situation where we would have to wind down things very quickly. And wind down doesn't necessarily mean laying off staff. I mean, it's possible, and I've already talked with Adam Jarvis with the Department of Finance and Administration about possibilities of maybe moving staff around within finance and administration and trying to find places for folks within other state agencies. F&A can't make any promises. I mean, they would do their best, but it's unlikely that they would be able to pick up all the staff kind of on short notice. They might be able to pick up a couple folks. So it's not something we could really rely on to say that we'll just transfer people over to finance and administration.
Wow.
Because they, as part of their budget, they also have state funds that are allocated based on the number of staff that work within the department, and they can't just absorb 6. I mean, we've got 7 staff positions, but one of those is vacant. So they couldn't necessarily just absorb 6 staff members that easily.
Right. Comments, questions?
Eileen here. I have a
Yes.
question. The staff are state employees. So if volunteer Tennessee employees are laid off, would they fall under the guidelines that the state has for all staff for notice of layoff, severance pay, and any of that stuff?
Well, so all of the Volunteer Tennessee staff are executive service. And for those who might not be familiar with how the state works, there are 2 types of employees. There's executive service who serve at the will of the executive or the governor. And then there are what are called preferred service. That used to be called civil service, but now it's called preferred service. So the civil service folks have more protections in terms of that kind of thing. Executive service employees really don't have
Oh, okay.
any protections because they serve at the pleasure of the executive.
Mhm.
And so there's not really, there wouldn't be severance packages or review, or review process or that kind of thing. Now, I believe that staff would be eligible for unemployment because this would be something that would be akin to a layoff.
Mhm.
But there wouldn't really be a whole lot of process that would be available for staff to
Oh, okay.
do anything about it.
Okay, that's too bad.
Mm.
Is there something like COBRA for continuation of health insurance?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So staff would be able to do COBRA. And for folks, and maybe folks are familiar with that, but if you're not, COBRA essentially allows you to pay out of pocket 100% of your health care. So you can continue your health care plan. I think it's for up to 6 months, I think. And so you personally have to pay the full price as opposed to, right now the state pays most of or a pretty good chunk of our monthly healthcare. But yeah, staff could do COBRA healthcare. Again, I think it's for 6 months.
Okay, good. I mean, that's
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah.
Can I ask, I got lots of questions. I don't even know where to start and to what end, but so thinking through, the commission is established by executive order at the state level, right? But receives a significant amount of funding, of course, from the federal level. So assuming that we were to lose, whether in full or in some large capacity, some of the dollars that actually help the commission operate through either of the grants, what level of work must still continue to happen per executive order? Anything, right? Or does it die with the funding, right? Because whether we're funded or not, we were created at the state level. Does my question make sense?
Sure.
What work must continue to happen as outlined at the state level, with or without funding, that we then just have to figure out? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, really the only thing that's in the executive order is that the commission must meet at least twice a year.
Okay.
So the commission itself, by executive order, would still have to meet. Now that could be virtually. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily have to be in person, so it could be done at relatively low cost. And I'd have to go back and double check to see. I mean, the other things that are in the executive order are things that are specifically that the commission must do, are things that are related to the AmeriCorps program. So that, it says that the commission, will submit the applications for the formula funding and provide training and technical assistance, et cetera, et cetera. But if all of that federal funding goes away, then or if the commission, well, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure what would happen if the AmeriCorps programs themselves continue to get funding, but the commission doesn't. Because
who does the work? Yes, the work?
Right. There are some requirements in there for the commission to do things, and those are both required within the executive order and within federal statute. Commissions are required to do that. So who would do it is a good question. Now, the other thing is that, I mean, the executive order does say that the Department of Finance and Administration shall provide administrative support. and staff to the commission. So, you know, I think finance administration would have to, in order to honor that part of the executive order, would have to provide at least some support. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be 7 full-time people.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably the as required, right? Would be my assumption. It would be what's
Yeah,
needed in
right.
order to accomplish that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could potentially be like added on to someone else's work responsibilities that they do kind of as a
Yeah.
quarter of their time or something.
The 460-ish, 450, 460,000 in state dollars that we get, the match dollars. Where are those dollars coming from? Are those a line item budget at the state level? Are those from FNA? Are those from the governor's office? Where are those dollars at?
They are a line item within the appropriations and within the governor's budget, and then within the appropriations under the Department of Finance and Administration. There's a line for Volunteer Tennessee that includes the 7 staff positions and the state funds that go along with that.
So in theory, let's say the federal dollars are no more and those are zeroed out, just the state portion, I'm thinking more long-term, even beyond like our current staff.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Let's say for years going forward, are those dollars, do they only exist in order to meet the match, or is there some expectation that we could at least ask to continue keeping our 460,000 state dollars? And we now just have a new budget model that we have to navigate, right? In terms of
sure. Yeah.
Any sense?
I mean, yeah, sure. I think the commission could certainly ask to continue to get that funding. Now, again, it's only half of the cost. So, some of the overhead expenses, like the phones and the computers and the space, those would be ratcheted back in a proportional way to if there was a significant reduction in staff. And some of the other overhead expenses would probably also be proportionally reduced, but some of the costs are like the financial costs that we pay to the Office of Business and Finance to do the work that they do. That would, if the programs continue, they charge us based on the number of transactions that they do. So if we still have programs and the programs are still getting paid and we're still doing all that work, those costs would probably remain pretty much the same. And those are the largest overhead kind of indirect expenses that we have for Volunteer Tennessee, is paying for those financial accounting services. So that we probably wouldn't see a whole lot of savings there, but some of the other things we would see some savings, again, proportional to the number of staff, because a lot of those things are based on a head count. And so if you have 3 staff instead of 7, you're getting charged for 3 instead of 7. So, with the state funding alone, I think there would probably be enough money to continue with a couple staff. I haven't done the numbers exactly to figure out to do that proportional for the things that are proportional and the things that aren't proportional to see exactly, but it probably would be maybe 2, maybe 3 staff with just the state funding alone.
Okay, that's helpful. And I assume that, and I think that's helpful for, obviously it sounds horrible that we even have to have this conversation,
Sure.
but of course where my head goes is, let's say in a worst case scenario that was to happen and we're able to hang on to at least a good chunk of our state dollars, right? What does our new staffing model look like, right? I mean, assuming there's an executive director and maybe 1 or 2 more people, what are their new jobs, right? I mean, everybody's capacity, obviously.
Right.
People are going to have their hands in a lot more buckets because it takes. So just trying to think through like, what are those priority areas, right? And I mean, again, I hate to even ask that question, but I'm like, assuming, I don't know. And again, we won't know till those things happen, but I would rather try to figure out some of those things now as a worst case scenario and not when we've got a week's notice, right?
Right. Yvonne, do you want me to answer that question, or do you want to? Okay. So I'll tell you based on other state commissions that have smaller staff than us because they have less AmeriCorps money, because the amount of formula money that we get for the AmeriCorps program is based on a population formula, which is why it's called formula money to begin with. And Tennessee is kind of in the middle. It's an average size state, so we get an average amount of formula funding. But there are a bunch of small states that don't get a whole lot of formula money. A lot of those states have 2, 3, 4 staff members, and in those situations, their staff, and including a lot of times the executive director themselves, are doing the portfolio management of the AmeriCorps programs. So the day-to-day support of the programs, making sure invoices get paid and processed for payment, providing training and technical assistance, doing the contracts, doing the grants management stuff on the federal side of things. So those are kind of the priorities that I would see if we were to have a significantly reduced staff. In terms of the federal side, now the other part, in terms of the things that I think would be valuable for the commission to keep doing if we find ourselves in this situation, the things that I think we should continue to try and do if we can. The Governor's Volunteer Stars Awards, it has a statewide impact, and could I think be done with less staff involvement than what we've done in the past. I mean, I think we could probably trim that back a little bit, but I think it's worthwhile to keep doing. The other thing that I think would be worthwhile to keep doing, but it's costly, is the statewide volunteer portal. Because right now, Volunteer Tennessee is paying about $70,000 a year for that system, and that covers the statewide portal for the parts of the state that don't have a volunteer center, and then I think 11 subsites for like Hands on Nashville, Volunteer Memphis, the Volunteer Center in Chattanooga. The larger metropolitan areas all have a subsite that feeds into that statewide site. But realistically, we would have to come up with more money, because that $70,000, I mean, that's a pretty good chunk of the $460. So we'd have to figure out funding to come from somewhere else for that. Then the other thing that I think would be nice to continue if we could figure out is the conference. But again, that would potentially look quite different than what it looks like right now, because we fairly heavily subsidize that conference with federal funds, because it's part of our overall strategy for providing training and technical assistance for the field at large. And so the registration that people are paying covers about a quarter of the actual cost. And the rest is picked up by Volunteer Tennessee, and also through sponsors and that kind of thing. So we'd have to pretty significantly think about how we do that to be able to maintain that in a way would be financially feasible. So Yvonne, you had your hand up.
And you actually touched on two of the things that I was going to ask about. I don't know if it would be a significant savings or if it's even doable, but I'm thinking about the staff. Is there any way that you guys can go like 100% remote? Would that be any type of savings? Or would you even be able to do what you need to do in that facet? And then the second thing was what does that mean for the annual conference and the awards? And you've already mentioned how and I feel the same way. I would like to keep that, but I don't know if even if we were to cut those or limit those or change those, if it would be enough of a savings to warrant doing it.
Yeah. So we're already pretty much 100% remote. In fact, we've got Candace lives in Memphis, Anthony lives in Greenville, and I'm in the office right now, but I'm here because we're having a meeting and to provide a public space in case a member of the public wants to show up. I'm here. Nobody did, but I'm here. So we're already remote. So that wouldn't really provide us any cost savings. Again, what would provide cost savings would be, dropping that head count from 7 to say 3. We would, because again, like for example, the space, even though we don't really use space, there is space available for staff if they want to come into the office. It's not assigned to them, so it's what they call free address. So you just come in and you find a space and you set up for the day, and then you pack up and leave at the end of the day and take all your stuff with you. But that's based on a head count. So we get charged proportionally to the number of staff. Our computers, obviously that's based on the number of staff, phones based on the number of staff. So again, we would see some savings, but it's actually wouldn't really change whether we're in person or virtual. Doesn't really change that a whole lot. I'm sorry. I think you asked something else that I'm not sure that I.
Yeah, well, it was about the conference and the awards, and I would love to keep them, but I don't know how we could shave enough money off and still have what they are to even count.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can get into it a bit more. The Governor's Volunteer Stars Awards typically brings in more money than the conference in terms of sponsorships and ads, but those kinds of things. We still subsidize the cost of it using our commission support grant funds because it's an important project of the commission. But yeah, I mean, it would have to either we would have to get a lot more sponsors to do the event the way we've been doing the event, because the event is, I mean, that's really the cost of the Governor's Volunteer Stars Awards. I mean, other than the staff time, the event itself is the primary cost for that. So I mean, we could not provide food, which is the largest expense for that event. That would save a lot of money. We could look for cheaper options for where we held it. So if we could find a place that was not as expensive, although the Franklin Marriott actually comps the space. So they give us the space for free because we are spending money on the hotel rooms and the food. And as long as we meet food and beverage minimums for the Governor's Volunteer Stars Awards and the conference combined, because they're co-located and it's the same, it's in terms of the hotel, it's the same event. For us, it's two different events, but for them, it's all together. As long as we meet our food and beverage minimums, they don't actually charge us for the space. So, so if we tried to save money by not having food, we would have to move it somewhere else. Otherwise, we'd get charged for the space, and we wouldn't really be saving anything. But that is a possibility. I mean, the first couple of years we actually held it here at the Tennessee Tower. There's a fairly large meeting room. I don't know if it would really be big enough to hold the number of people that have been showing up lately, but we could potentially manage. And there might be other state facilities that we could potentially use that wouldn't cost us anything, or that would be a much lower cost. So we could potentially save money in a couple ways there. But again, the food is the biggest cost of that event.
And we did one year, we had a virtual conference. That could be an option if we wanted to continue.
Yeah. Well, we had the virtual conference, and we did the Governor's Volunteer Stars Awards virtually that year too, because that was COVID when everything was shut down.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are possibilities to have a virtual conference. We could also consider a 1-day conference instead of a 1.5 day conference. I mean, there's a variety of ways where we could trim the cost a little bit. So yeah, the other thing again would be to try and maintain a semblance of what we've done in the past with some cost savings, would be to do more fundraising and sponsorships, and looking to get more money coming in that's not state money, and to kind of help with some of that federal money that could potentially go away.
So
I wonder.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Well, I was thinking about our roadshow, and I'm wondering if this is something that we could approach with any sponsors that we find to help with, that are involved with the roadshow. Maybe that's something we could talk with them about.
Yeah, potentially. No, I'm kind of in the same place, and I'm pulling that up a little bit more on the money side. I know we're talking a lot about how do we save costs, how do we cut costs, how do we prioritize. Also, the other flip of the coin, though, right, is how do we get more money, right? So it's not just cut. At some point, it's like you can only cut so many bills, right? It's like you just need more money to cover the bills. So the two things that come to mind, one is, I think, to your point, Terry, and I think this is something Eileen, maybe we in the Friends folks can brainstorm, but if there's ever a time to really try to put the fire on trying to really fundraise, right? I mean, it's now or never, right? The time has come where those dollars matter. So really trying to think through how we strategize around this moment, right? And I feel like there's a lot of entities and a lot of people that, of course, I'm just seeing all of the posts and all of the messaging and all of the news coverage that is happening across the state and the country, but it's been, for our purposes, in the state, of people that are very disappointed that with the funding cuts, and they're very disappointed to see that AmeriCorps is being slashed here, and they're very disappointed to see this cut over here, right? And if some of those entities are entities that are willing to put their dollars behind helping to salvage some of those things, I think, need to be brainstorming how we navigate that and how we give them a place to do that, right? Are you upset about this and you really care about it? Are you in a place where you're willing and able to give? Not everyone is, and that's okay. But if you are an entity or a person that really values these programs, right? I think about AmeriCorps alumni. I think about some of those entities, right?
Yeah.
How do we really intentionally say, like, hey, now's the time, right? If you've got the ability and the desire and you value these programs, please be willing to throw in some support, right? So I think there's something there that maybe is worth exploring. And I think commissioners, I know we always struggle with getting commissioners to donate, but
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, so I think that's a factor. The other thing is, knowing some of the catalysts behind a lot of these cuts across the board at the federal level, at least the public catalyst is, the public kind of talking points from DOGE are, we want to give some of this power and this spending and this prioritization back to the states. The states this, the states that, yada, 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 yada. Whether or not I agree with that, that's the logic that's being thrown around, right? Is giving some of this back to the states and putting it back on the states to do some of the work. That's the logic that has been publicized a lot at the federal level, both from the administration and from DOGE proper. And I'm wondering if there's value in us also having that conversation at the state level, right? Like, at this moment in time, are we tied to only getting $460,000 from the state?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I'm so glad that you said that. 'cause
Right?
I'm
Like,
sitting here
if
thinking,
there's a
we're
time
the
to
volunteer
ask.
state.
Yeah,
That's what we're known for.
exactly.
That's right.
I mean,
If
can
there's
we
a-
not, is there not a mechanism for us to request a higher amount? How does that work, Jim?
Yeah.
Can we not request or prompt or meet with whomever to get that
Yeah.
amount raised?
Yeah, sure. So yes, I mean, the commission could ask for more funds in the governor's budget and or directly from the General Assembly. So I think probably all of you know how this works, but each year the governor presents his governor's budget to the General Assembly. Then the General Assembly takes it up and they do all their meetings, and then they do the appropriations. And usually the appropriated budget is pretty close to the governor's budget in most ways. I mean, sometimes they add more money here or take some money away here or there, but generally they're pretty aligned. So we could ask for more money in the state budget. Now, part of the problem is that the next state fiscal year begins in a couple months, and so it would be difficult to get more state money for July 1 of this year because they've already done the appropriations, and I mean the General Assembly is gone. They're not going to come back in session just to give us more money. So essentially what's been appropriated right now for Volunteer Tennessee is what's going to be available for the entire next state fiscal year. But the commission could request, as part of the annual budgeting process, each state agency puts forward their request that goes to their department. Their department then shares that with the budget office. The budget office takes all of those requests and generates the governor's budget. So through that executive branch process, we could request more money. Now it would have to go through a couple steps to actually get in the governor's budget, but that's a possibility. But then again, I mean, the commission could, through just directly approaching the General Assembly, say, please give us more money than what's in the governor's budget. I mean, that's also a possibility. That could potentially create some friction with the administration for a commission to be asking for more money than what's in the budget. But it is something that the commission could do. I think, though, I mean, if we are in the situation where we're trying to do this kind of thing, we would, I think, go through the state budgeting process first to see where that comes out. At least that would be my recommendation before trying to approach the General Assembly directly.
Good.
I feel like now, I mean, it doesn't solve the July 1 problem, right? This wouldn't help us for the next year, and hopefully we won't need it. But thinking long term, I feel like now's the time. I mean, if we've demonstrated anything, it's that we need to be planning, not just one step ahead, but like 12 steps ahead, right? And some of these initiatives that people are really leaning, we talked about wanting to salvage the GVSA is really important to us. We've talked about the statewide volunteer management portal, which is directly tied to the, First Lady's office. Granted, she will not be in that position for much longer, but right, it's like several of these initiatives that people are really relying on that have been uplifted and supported by the state are some of the things potentially that, if we lose funding, are going to have to either get cut or at least significantly scaled back, right? So even being able to step up and say, hey, maybe it's not even, meet the full other $400,000 match. Maybe that's not the ask. But if we could even get another 100 or another 200, right? So I definitely think, as we think from when I think about Day on the Hill, when I think about, and again, maybe that's not quite the right avenue, but trying to just think through over this next year, as we go into our state service plan, as we go into all of these prioritizing for the next upcoming year, I feel like funding needs to be a part of that conversation. I think historically it's mainly been focused on programming, but programming's irrelevant if you don't have the dollars to go with it, right?
That's right.
So I think we should be having that conversation. The worst thing we get to know, and we're back to where we're at, but we're not in worse shape, right? I mean, we have what we have.
Well, we're at 2 minutes before 5, and I want to respect everyone's time. And I know Eileen's got her hand up. I do want to know how the staff is doing, and I don't know if you're having conversations about things that are happening, but I just want to know how that's playing out for the staff.
Yeah. I mean, we're continuing to meet on a regular basis. I mean, I think the staff is concerned,
Yes.
obviously, about what's happening. I've done my best to try and give them my honest assessment of where I think things are probably going to go, which is I think that we're going to be okay with our operational grants, I think, but also making sure that they understand that until DOGE is completely done, I can't promise them that we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I think they are understandably concerned and will continue to be concerned until all of this, until DOGE has completely moved on and is until we get our money, I think everybody's going to still be a little bit concerned. And fortunately, though, again, those new grants, the grant period starts July 1. So they're going to have to be awarding those grants pretty soon at the federal level, just so that they're the federal grants are in place for the start date. So we're going to know within the next couple weeks, I think, with certainty whether or not the operational money is there. Now, that doesn't mean that this conversation shouldn't continue. And like Nathan said, it's like now's the time to be planning for the future. So I think everybody's okay, but concerned.
Yes. Thank you. Eileen, you got your hand up.
Yes. So I think my question is, I think, pretty basic. Should the worst happen, which is that all federal funding goes away, all the programs are terminated, all the everything, support grant, everything goes away. Can we do we have to plead with the governor's office or with the state to continue what's now considered a match? Is there a given that state funding will stay with us and that we might be able to do, state-oriented things like the GVSA, the conference, the portal? Or would we have to make a presentation at that point and say, okay, well, the original purpose to, be this conduit for federal funds, that's gone. But we have all this other stuff that we do in the state that's really worthwhile. Will you please continue to fund us? Is that something that we're going to have to do?
My assessment is that yes, if all of the federal funds, all of it were to go away, that the commission would probably have to make a case as to why it needed to continue to get that money. I mean, I think fortunately we're in the volunteer state and it's a volunteer commission. So I think there's a pretty good argument to continue, to continue the Governor's Volunteer Stars Awards, to continue the statewide portal, to continue the conference, to continue the corporate social purpose work, to continue the award of excellence for schools. I mean, we've got a bunch of programs that don't have anything to do with AmeriCorps. And I think there is a good argument to continue those things. Now, how much money we could convince the administration and the General Assembly to give to the commission is another story. But I think I think the commission would have to make that argument, but I think there's a pretty good argument to be made.
Mhm.
Good.
So I think that, conceivably, maybe one of the things that we want to put into our plan is to put together a document or a slideshow, a presentation of some kind that encapsulates all the things that we do for the state, that would justify the continuation of our existence even without federal funding for anything.
Good point. Very good point, Eileen. Any other comments, questions? We're at 5:03 and I want to respect your evening. Jim, do we have any requests for public comment, questions?
No, we did not get a request.
Okay. Well, we do need to continue to have a conversation. I know we've got the road show that maybe we can discuss some ways that we can talk about, reminding people that we do need money. And then Friends of Volunteer too with the fundraising. So we definitely need to continue to have the conversation, and maybe we need to meet again as we're walking this tightrope up to July 1st. If we could just keep those outside, out the door.
Yeah.
Moving forward, that's my hope. And so thanks for the encouragement, Jim, that you gave us.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions?
If I can throw out there, this is not something we have to talk about right now, but maybe something, Jim, if you've in all of your free time that I know you don't have, if there's any opportunity, even just some quick looking to see if other state service commissions have any kind of additional revenue streams outside of, right? Like I am thinking back to corporate social purpose and the conversation we had with Eileen. I think it was either maybe last week, around funding, and of course those people are going to be paying dues, right? As their, and I think Eileen brought up the point of, is there, when I think about some of these programs and the staff that's supporting them as potentially being the ones that are on the chopping block, is there a way to utilize some of the funds from those things to actually help offset the overhead, right? So is there some opportunities to generate some revenue? And I some membership models, some, I'm a fan of keeping everything free, but I also know in our current climate, it's not always possible if we want to continue to offer the services. So something worth asking, right? Are there some innovative, creative things that others are doing that is creating money? So
yeah, it would be interesting to see too if other commissions have a dues model, because we have, we've given commission members ample opportunity to donate. They get the link all the time, and just small dollar amounts, $5 a month or so. It adds up.
Yeah.
And, I would love to see that happening, because I know that even, before, when Donovan was heading up Friends, he tried all kinds of things, contests and all kinds of things to get commission members to donate a bit. And we haven't had a whole lot of luck with that.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for your time. And it sounds like we've got some work to do and some funds to raise.
Yeah.
Thank you for pulling this together in a fairly timely manner.
Appreciate it.
So it was very educational. So this is good.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Okay. I guess that's it for us. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Thank you, Eileen. We don't need a second, right, Jim?
You need a second, but not a vote.
Oh, I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Yvonne. All right, everybody. Have a great evening, and we will see you soon.
Okay.
Thanks,
For all you
everybody.
do, Jen.
Talk to you soon.
We
Bye-bye.
Thank
appreciate
you all.
you.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.